This is what women feel like. Look at this. I'm beautiful.
Son of a bitch. You look like you got into your mom's makeup supplies.
Huh? Excellent.
Get the John Lennon thing going on.
POV. You are at 38 Snuggo's goal.
Hell yes. I found this cat outside. It was hungry. It's mine now. Look at this. I'm so kissable now.
Yeah.
Can I just keep my real facial hair?
No longer an option.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, it has to be something.
I can already tell this is going to be a good one.
This stream is sponsored by Noisefighters, so if you're in the market for night vision accessories, whether that be their Pano Bridge, J-Arm, or even their new Cliffhang IR Riser that's designed for your red dot magnifier and even your laser aiming module, then go ahead and check them out. Once again, that is Noisefighters. Now, if you need actual night vision devices or other optics, you can also check out Optics Force. They sent out this AGM Gen 2 Plus unit that I've been playing around with. Review coming on that shortly, but you can go ahead and check out both of them at the links in the description or pinned comment. Good morning, everyone, or evening, I should say. Hope you're all having a wonderful night tonight. But before we get rolling, I do want to say thank you to all of you who are here with us live. And for those of you watching later, well, we thank you as well. While you're here, go ahead and tend to the algorithm farm down below. Now, usually on these streams, I would have Gary, but Gary went and had a baby, his first son. So congratulations to him, but he is out for tonight. But before he went, he did get me a couple of other guests to help out. So we've traded one Otis for two more. So go ahead and welcome Brass and Hop. Go ahead and pull these guys in. So we are now live. How's it going, gentlemen?
Pretty good.
I need those filters back.
Oh, I know. You don't have all the options on here like you do on Zoom.
That's all right. He's just going to get slowly raptured over the next hour.
Yeah, I'd say it's good to be here, but I got another 10 minutes before.
So do you get slowly brighter or slowly darker at this point?
It depends. It's like this inverse curve where the sun comes up and then the camera can keep up with the exposure. And then about 30 minutes in, it just gives up and it whites out and then it snaps back at some point.
It's just angelic for you. All right.
Yep. God saw what I was doing with those filters and put an end to that.
It's time to take you home. So tonight what we're going to be talking about is, for the most part, dissipators and stuff. And this is kind of Hop's fault because on like a couple streams ago, you asked me for an 11.5 mid with a suppressor-only gas port size from CAC. And CAC was incredibly fast. They actually made it in like less than 4 days to my door. Just a completely brand new part that they just spun up, which is what happens when you have in-house manufacturing capabilities and your own barrel blanks. But so we're going to go ahead and talk about, let me go ahead and pull this up if I can. This is the original Dissipator, which kind of started life as the Colt 605, which was essentially, again, your original M16, just chopped back about as far as you can. Now, I want to say the original Colt Dissipators were like a 15-inch with the original A2 front sight block, triangle hand guards, A1 upper receiver. Very cool looking, but unfortunately they were either not very reliable or they just didn't fill that much of a niche. So they kind of died for about 20 years. And then, of course, you'll see aftermarket companies bringing them back. Delton makes a couple. PSA makes some. Brownells make some retro versions as well. But essentially, the Dissipator started out life as just a standard M16 with the gas system as long as possible and the barrel as short as possible.
I'm pretty sure the headline picture for this article is not a Colt 605.
I have no idea.
I believe that was the first ever reflex suppressor that they fielded limited numbers of in Vietnam. And there's really only a handful of pictures of Colt 605s, and there's a couple of those, and everybody always says they're Dissipators. I don't think that's accurate. I think that doesn't match the other features.
So you think that there's a gas block underneath the handguard on a lot of them?
No, the one, the guy, the smiling, I guess that guy's South or Arvin or something probably, but that gun is a whatever XM16 or whatever it is. I mean, it's got a forward assist, and it just has a reflex can shrouding the barrel. So that's probably a 20-inch barrel gun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then the other ones were cut down to 15. A lot of them had this picture also. Yeah, everything about the online
I have no idea what this is.
discourse about Dissipators drives me crazy. That's not a fucking Colt 605. It's top charging. It's got I think it's got the Armalite roll mark on it. Like,
yeah.
What the hell are you talking about? Also, yeah, the real 605s had the bayonet lug ground down, so they could get the flashlight or a little more or easier to install it. So
interesting. I didn't know that. That's cool.
I keep wanting to make a video about the history of the Dissipator, but it would just be as much speculation as most of these articles are, I think.
Well, hey, I mean, you might as well do it. You probably get good views on that because it is an interesting topic that has come back into, I don't want to say prominent. You see more companies doing it now because they get bored and so they start chasing like that one specific feature set, or retro rifles are super hot right now. So then everybody's buying up retro stuff. But have something here. Let me move this up here for a second.
Love how you had some nice, B-roll material to show off, and Hop's like, actually, shithead, this is all wrong. Get this out of here. What are you doing?
That article was written by Travis Pike, and it references other articles that I think were also written by Travis Pike. I think he's the only person who's ever bothered to write about the history of the Dissipator. It's always just him.
There's another article that I had pulled up that is also by Travis Pike.
Yeah,
he's already preempting you.
He's the only guy who knows.
Mm-hmm. So he's the one guy who's like, this is my favorite subject, and I'm going to talk about it.
Yep.
But what CAC made for us, they haven't brought this to market yet, but this is in the raw, and this technically isn't a firearm, so hopefully this doesn't get me kicked off. But this is a 11.5 mid, so kind of like the mini Dissipator, I guess you could call it, but not really. But what essentially this is the longest gas system length possible on the shortest barrel possible. So you have almost no dwell time. Now, interestingly on this is that CAC actually made it for me with a gas port size that is actually too small to run unsuppressed. So the gas port size that I requested was actually a .076, which is kind of what they made it at. And it actually runs fantastic with a suppressor. Without a suppressor, it won't run at all. So you asked for this, Hop. What were you looking for out of this?
I think that's the most interesting thing about the Dissipator is not what the Dissipator was originally, which was just a field expedient attempt to get a carbine out of a full-length rifle. They're just like, let's just chop the barrel short. And they probably, if I had to guess, I would say that they literally took 20-inch barrels and cut them short instead of making 15-inch barrels because they probably had a bunch of spare parts. So they're just like, we need a short gun right now. Then you fast forward to whenever, Bushmaster's doing it in whatever it was, maybe the 80s, I think, when they started doing it. And they were replicating an aesthetic, but they wanted the gun to work. So that configuration is also not what you actually want to do if you're building a ground up rifle. It's just we have to make it look like the Vietnam gun, but we also have to make it cycle, particularly with shitty 223 spec ammo.
Right.
Now you fast forward all the way to now, and it's like, okay, what's actually cool about a Dissipator style gas system is that when you put a suppressor on a gun, you're adding a bunch of like bonus dwell time. And so if you start with like a 16-inch carbine length gas, that's a hell of a lot of dwell time. Put a suppressor on that, you've got minutes of dwell time. So you want to extend the gas system. Mid-length better than carbine. Well, rifle length better than mid-length then, right? But you eventually do run into those tiny little windows where do you actually want it to run unsuppressed? If so, you got to have a big ass gas port. But if you just say, forget it, I'm not gonna shoot this thing unsuppressed. So I might as well just direct thread a can, get a tiny gas port, and extend the gas system length all the way because we know we're putting a can on the end. And that's something that very few companies have done. Like there is an 11.5 mid barrel from Faxon, which has a hogged out gas port because it's meant to run unsuppressed.
It's like 111 or something like that. It's huge.
Yep. And then BRT for a brief period of time did make suppressor optimized barrels, which they said should probably not shoot unsuppressed. They didn't guarantee function or anything without a suppressor. So that was a briefly available thing. I don't think they were dissipator gas lengths. I think like it was a regular 11 carbine suppressed use only kind of, configurations. But it is fascinating. Although then you made your video about the $20, $18 YHM suppressor gas block, which sort of turns any barrel into a suppressor barrel. So I don't know if this, if this 11.5 mid suppressor only barrel is like going to be a huge seller, but I think it's interesting. And I bet there are some people who would rather not tune with the gas block. They'd probably rather just have the barrel gapped the way they want it.
The one advantage of a system like this is it is just turnkey. You just use standard components. You don't need to worry what gas block you're putting on it. You just do it the same you would do with anything else. Now, CAC actually talks to me about that. They're like, we have to spin up like 50 of these to actually make it worth anything. And I was like, well, suppressors are selling a lot right now, so they should sell for sure. So,
I mean, it seems like a build they could just toss on their website as a complete upper, but
I don't know if they would sell them complete though, because then you would need to, if you're including a muzzle device, then people aren't going to necessarily, want that specific muzzle device that they're including. And I don't really think CAC makes any like Plan B systems or anything like that. If they did, it could be cool. Yeah. Cause we've both made videos on the 16-inch version that they put out. You're using a rifle speed gas block, which is a really cool system as well. And I was just using a regular, I think, Aero Precision gas block on mine. But yeah, so the problem with cutting the barrel or the dwell time down so far, and I had somebody comment last time I mentioned dwell time that's not the actual like correct term for dwell time, but it's what we colloquially refer to as dwell time. Is just the time that we have pressure at the port. And so when you're doing that, the AR-15 is great because you have such a wide operating window and you can do so much with that. Like it can be really overgassed and still run just fine. Might wear your parts a little bit faster, and you can tune it really far down. But when you have very little dwell time, you have very little to play with. So yeah, like you were saying, a lot of the times we'd get a 11.5 mid, or even a 12.5 mid, which I think you played around with some 12.5 mids as well, where the gas port is just awful on them because they think somebody's going to be running around with like suppressed shooting or unsuppressed shooting, like really bad steel cased ammunition. And even then it's like horribly overgassed. So sometimes I think that they're just kind of going with the first gas port that actually works on them.
Yeah, those AK barrels, the 16 and the 12, are both intended to be run unsuppressed. So if you do want to suppress them, then you're probably even more so than on a regular like 12.5 carbine barrel. I just feel like you get a massive jolt of gas all at once. That's why those, like the Anderson Dissipator without a suppressor, it shoots weird. It does feel a lot different. And some people will say like it's really smooth. I don't think they're necessarily that smooth because they are dumping a lot of gas all in one go. But then again, you do have the longer gas tube. So it does not feel like a 20-inch AR. It feels like some other kind of thing.
Right. Well, it is different, and it does mess with the timings. Now, the thing with dissipators in general is that people, if it's tuned perfectly, it might be slightly better than some other systems on the market, but it really doesn't make that much of a difference. Like, it's like 1% or something. If you have a properly tuned 11.5 versus 12.5, it's probably negligible for the most part.
I think it's a novelty thing, kind of like something I'm working on right now is the front sight block. Fixie, it's a 14.5 right now. I really want a front sight block and a flush suppressor at about 11.5. So
Really?
that'd be cool as hell. Would that be smart? Probably not.
No.
That's the build that I put together was a 12.5 front sight base using a fax.
I think the old
on 12.5 gunner
is doing something as well as his main rifle is a front sight block, short barrel, suppressed only setup.
Well, mine was the fax on 12.5. I think it's also considered a gunner. So the gunner barrels have enough space on the gas block journal to mount a front sight base, and you can buy them with a pin front sight base from TNTE. And I just used that as the basis for the 12.5 build that I put together, using the same handguard that Brass has got on his Munition Works Fixie. So,
so it's the.
I thought it was pretty sick. The difference was that mine was hogged out to be shot.
I would run suppressed only. Yeah, I'd run probably a K can and run suppressed only. And it's kind of just like a grab and go style gun.
Well, that was another option that I had with that build, was to buy one of those Black River Tactical suppressor gas tubes and just swap it in for the other one, and then just run a direct thread can. But something in me says I can't pay $80 for a gas tube. Just doesn't feel right.
But they're the only people
over $80 on really dumb shit. The gas tube is where the line is drawn.
It's too sensible. It's too sensible to cost that much.
Well, I feel like somebody could make it a lot simpler, but you'd probably have to end up buying like 1,000 blank gas tubes for it to be worth it for the manufacturer to not put in the same gas hole that they do for all of them.
Or they'd sell you.
I'm not buying 1,000 gas tubes to do that.
They sell you a tuning pack, which is like 6 gas tubes in various increments, so that you can fine tune the one that you want, and then you're paying $80 anyway and throwing away 5 gas tubes.
Right. Well, it would be cheaper actually if they just sent you like 6 different drill bit sizes, and you just work your way up to what you want.
Then just sell the smallest one and just have a little chart on the website that's like, hey, I mean, because drill bits, I'm not sure if people know this, are pretty affordable. You can go get them at Ace Hardware and
you can get a wire gauge
check or
for
anything.
about $4.
What are tools?
Don't use tools. Have you guys messed around with 6 ARC at all?
No.
No.
I wanted to do stuff with it, and then I kept not doing stuff with it. And I'm just not a fan of boutique rounds that are like right on the on paper this shit will literally kill 27 elephants at 4,000 yards. It's like, yeah, but A, does it really? And most of them are unreliable as hell, or barrel burners, or 12 different combinations of the in between. So I was going to try 6 ARC because it was popular, and I was at the time where YouTube was doing all right for me. So I was like, you know what, maybe this could be cool content, and then I never did.
Yeah,
I'm a 6.5 Grendel Chad, so.
This is a weird one. So this is not really Dissipator. This is an 18-inch 6 ARC.
Careful, don't touch it. As soon as you touch it.
Yeah, I know, right? But can I touch the tripod? Does that change it?
This chat instantly, streams down.
Instantly. But no, this is a Magnum length gas system. And this is tuned basically perfectly. But the thing about 6 ARC that I found is it is incredibly sensitive to any sort of changes in system. So if you change your buffers, if you change your ammunition, magazines, suppressed versus unsuppressed, you can basically just stop it working entirely. And so it is a system that requires a lot of TLC to get working properly. And so this system is tuned really well. This is a stupidly expensive carbon fiber system from Next Level Arms, I want to say, but very difficult to actually get them working properly.
That's the issue that I had with 7.62x39 and 6.5 Grendel in the AR.
Yeah.
That like the 5.56 AR, you have a working gun, you throw a suppressor on it. Now you have a working gun that's gassy and it's running pretty hard. Doesn't matter. I would have these guns set up. They would be reliable. I'd put a suppressor on them. They'd stop working. I'd upgrade the buffer, take the suppressor off. They'd stop working again. So yeah, it's clearly the AR platform is very much a solved platform for 5.56 and 6 ARC, 6.5 Grendel, X39, 6.8 SPC. I assume a lot of those other cartridges seem like they're just way harder to get right. And I think 6.5 Grendel's pretty cool, but also, yeah, the suppressed shooting experience is closer to 308 in terms of like the felt recoil and muzzle rise, and the fact that you get gassed out more. I don't know if it's because of powder volume or powder formulation, but I just feel like I get crazy gassed out by a suppressed 6.5 Grendel more so than a 5.56. And it feels, yeah, it's like shooting a you know, 308 suppressed, where you're like breathing these massive miasmas of burnt powder every single time. So 6.5 Grendel bolt action, then it's like a 308 bolt action with lightweight ammunition, smaller magazines that weighs less, has less recoil. So now I'm still into 6.5 Grendel. I just think I'm going to retire the AR builds that I put together.
I want to see that thing in action, because you've been talking about the 6.5 bolt gun this whole time, and I'm like, well, what's not 6.5 Creedmoor to be sure, 6.5 Grendel.
Yep. It's cozy. I'm not going to say it's the best thing ever, but it's cozy, and it's impossible to get bad ammunition now that the Wolf steel case dried up. Every single 6.5 round you buy is good, and a bunch of companies started making it. So some European country adopted a 6.5 Grendel gun or something. A bunch of European ammo like S&B, PPU started spooling up their production of 6.5 Grendel. PSA, I have it on good authority that the people who run PSA are in love with 6.5 Grendel, and so they're going to start spinning up 6.5 Grendel ammo too. Although I think they did shit can their AK project.
Yeah, because you don't see any AKs in 6.5 Grendel for some reason, even though it's like just objectively a ballistically superior round to 7.60 by 9.
Yeah, there's so many cartridges. I'm sure Brass could speak more to that. Like, every newer cartridge is way better than all the previous cartridges, but there's something to be said for a very mature platform and just the install base, or just the versatility of it. You know, you're just like, well, 300 Blackout's better from a short barrel, and 6 ARC is better from a long barrel, and you're like, you know what's good at everything, kinda, is 5.56.
I think you can look at 300 Blackout, and that's probably the most successful iteration of a round kind of, or maybe 6.5 Creedmoor is pretty far up there too, of a round that just did not really have mainstay adoption, and then came in and had a chance of kicking out, you know, whatever was the mainstay of the time. And we look at 300 Blackout, and yeah, man, Travis Haley was pushing 300 Blackout really fucking hard there for a bit with Year of the Blackout and talking about all kinds of things. And then at the end of the day, we realized, like, from a fighting rifle perspective, shit, 7.62 by 3.9, right, with a better taper. There are, of course, other advantages for 300 Blackout that aren't, you know, just raw performance, right? There's the subsonic, supersonic dynamic, but that was probably one of the best cases of adoption where, like, everyone was on board on that thing. And then it turns out there's always a little bit of something.
Actually, I don't know what they did differently with 300 Blackout. I assume that the people working on it were better funded and more motivated to get it right. But yeah, 300 Blackout, like 5.56, you can have a gun that works, throw a suppressor on it, it still works. It doesn't seem like they, you know, maybe it's just that the magazines are better or something, the feed angle's better. But yeah, all those super curvy banana mags, when you over gas the gun, the magazines can no longer present rounds fast enough, and so you start getting other issues.
It's very possible. Yeah.
Pain in the ass.
I mean, 300 Blackout does essentially utilize the same case as 5.56, and you also have the new 6 Max coming out, which in theory remedies some of the issues with like 6.5 Grendel, 6 ARC, because it's using a 350 Legend case that's then necked down to 6, so it has like slightly more capacity than a 5.56 case.
Is that how different is that from 224 Valk?
No idea. I never shot 224 Valk. That was one of the cartridges that kind of lived and died before I really got into making other calibers or just playing.
I feel like it came out during the COVID pandemic, so it was sort of like, there's no way people are going to adopt this right now. And then sure enough, they didn't. Although for a while, it was one of the only rifle cartridges you could still buy at Walmart. Like,
well, it was probably just because
they
it
bought
wasn't
into it.
because I do remember seeing those, you know, they'd have stacks of it there and everything else would be gone.
Yeah.
That's probably because it's not very well. I do remember that there were some issues with like bullet separations coming out of barrels. Basically, the twist rates were like too fast for the projectiles or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know about that. That sounds like 224 Valk didn't seem like it offered anything. 6 ARC seems like a more intelligent, or you know, a better version of that. Because always Federal and Hornady, one of them will come out with a Wildcat type of cartridge to get some buzz, and the other company's going to have to make their own alternative. Because I feel like 6.5 Grendel, for example, Federal doesn't touch it, I don't think. Hornady makes all of the loadings you see for 6.5 Grendel stateside. So is 6 ARC a Federal thing? No, that's still a Hornady thing. Federal tried to do 224 Valk because they were like, we're going to make a. I think 224 Valk may have been Federal's 6 ARC killer, but it didn't work.
Well, 6 ARC came out after 224 valve, didn't it?
Maybe so. Yeah, whichever it is, like they keep just like trading Wildcats back and forth.
Well, I mean, there are like true Wildcats, like 6GT and 6 Dasher and stuff like that, but
338 Spectre.
Those are
Ooh,
those are a lot of those are purely like PRS fantasy type stuff, where somebody loads up a batch of like 100 or something like that, and he shoots a PRS match, and then he goes on to the next one, and that's just about it.
All those Wildcat guys are just like ballistics nerds. They build cartridges in the ballistics app, never produce them. They don't have to. They just run all the numbers, and they're like, this would actually be a really good cartridge between 1,100 and 1,300 yards. And they post about it to Sniper Side or something, and everybody runs the numbers themselves, and are like, damn, that does look pretty badass. Somebody should make this. No one will make this.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot to spin up like commercial production. And if there's no military contracts backing it, then your cartridge has a much harder time of succeeding. The Nomatron for $4.99. Thank you very much, sir. Says, should I go down in buffer weight for my 16-inch Dissipator using an Odin Works low mass and wondering if the carbine or H would make it better? It really depends, I guess, on your barrel and gas port size. The simplest solution is, again, having a bigger gas port and an adjustable gas block if you do want to tune it. Depends how much you're shooting it. Low mass carriers also complicate your timings, right? Because you're going to get a lot higher bolt velocity right off the bat. So you might want a slightly heavier buffer behind it, which might defeat the purpose of having a lightweight carrier in the first place, but you might want to do something to slow it down if you're having issues with it.
Just be normal. Use a mil-spec PCG.
There are some things that
bootleg?
Wait, yeah, bootleg.
Okay, shit. Okay, I take it back. Next topic, please.
Fido O'Rourke for $20. That's Gary. Thank you, sir. Thanks to the lesbian power couple for covering tonight. This has been a long requested episode.
Yeah, man. Fuck Gary.
Hey, I mean, he reached out, guys, and you guys said yes, so it's your fault.
Shit.
I can't blame him for everything. Yandles for $5. Thank you very much, sir. Says the Max has the advantage of using the same bolt as a 5.56, like the 300 Blackout. Yes. Yeah. So 6GT could possibly, or not 6GT. Sorry, I was thinking of the other calibers. 6 Max could at some point be cool in the future, but unless you're into tinkering with systems, probably don't pick it up for like 5 years. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, I think you can only get it in those hideous-looking Sol GW builds where they have moved the pistol grip to the rear so that you can get more natural trigger reach. Have you seen those?
I have not seen those, no.
The new Sol GW lowers are fucking psychotic looking.
Now I have to look this up.
I like how this guy is saying...
When you look at them, they're like, oh, that's a normal AR, but something's wrong with it, and you look closer and you might become slightly horrified.
I like this comment that's saying SPR, SBR, DMR, and Recce. I know what those mean, but what the fuck is a Dissipator? And it's funny because the Dissipator is probably the most squarely boxed definition out of the bunch.
You can start a holy war by giving the wrong definition of Dissipator. Corey, my answer for you is that a Dissipator is a carbine.
Ooh.
It's all Dissipators now.
So you are looking to start a holy war. I just rewatched what's
Kingdom
that
of Heaven?
holy movie? Thank you. See, this is why.
Oh, everybody's been watching it. You've been subject to the hive mind.
I like how I watched it for the first time only like 6 months ago, right before it shot.
So,
like, I thought this movie was great. Have you heard of it? It's like, have I heard of it?
Have I? Allow me to talk to you about the movie you just watched.
I don't remember. Was that actually good? Because I watched it like 10 years ago.
That was great.
The original cut of it is very hard to follow because they had to take like an hour out of it. And
it's a Ridley Scott one, right?
Yeah. When you watch the director's cut, you're like, oh, that's who that was. So it's, yeah.
You know what? I might have only seen the theatrical cut then because I left it kind of mid.
Yeah, I watched it when it came out in theaters. It was like
2.5 hours, right?
It was kind of enjoyable. You're like, oh, that was some cool action, and Legolas was in it. And then, yeah, you're trying to like kind of think about what actually took place in the film, and you're like, I actually don't know what happened. But the director's cut is fantastic.
How long is the director's cut? Maybe
it's
I
like
know.
3.5 hours.
Well, I don't think I watched the director's cut.
You got to set aside some time.
All right, that's what I'm doing right
Speaking
now.
of director's cuts, have you guys seen the trailer for the second one coming out, the Gladiator 2?
2. I saw
Right.
the like 4-second long Instagram reel, and Denzel Washington said "my man," and I was like, "Wait, what?"
What is this movie?
I'm a
Yeah,
huge
that right hand
Denzel
says
Washington fan, and I
Axil,
don't know what he's
so
in that movie for.
The way he wrote that, 6 MA triple X.
That's how max it is, man.
That's it.
Yeah, Supermax.
Max.
Supermax. Oh yeah. As soon as you adopt, this is the other problem with Wildcats. As soon as you adopt it, everybody else is going to abandon it. It's like when your friends keep telling you to buy a game. They're like, dude, you got to get Payday 2, man. We've all been playing Payday 2. You got to get Payday 2. And you're like, okay, I got Payday 2 downloaded. What are we playing tonight? And they're like, not Payday 2. Fuck.
Luke, get Lethal Company, man. It's all the rage right now. Oh, it's finally on sale. I bought Lethal Company. Don't you know Lethal Company is out? We're playing Helldivers, idiot.
It's like, hey, man, I'm downloading it now. Hey, man, I'm uninstalling it now. Shit.
Helldivers kind of died. Like lost like 90% of its player base in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, but it was also the most played game of like the last 5 years or some shit like that. So some of it's understandable. It seems to still be a pretty good game.
Those people were not true patriots.
Dip. Fuck it. I'm getting a beer. It's still hot.
Unfair.
What do you mean unfair?
I don't have any beer.
Focustripp is
Yeah.
learning that we sabotage every single live stream we're on and completely take over and get us off topic about
It's perfectly fine because that kind of wrapped it up for my Dissipator talk because I only had like 6 notes on that.
Well, okay, so that's the real question with dissipators. Certain barrel length dissipators make more sense than others. I think that the 16-inch dissipator kind of required the rifle speed for me, or for you, the arrow adjustable gas block, because
I was a
16-inch gun. Okay, because yeah, on a 16-inch gun, I'm like, I can see why you might want to take the can off. On an 11.5 or a 12.5 gun, I don't see why you need to take the suppressor off. You know, if you're actually talking about like a bag gun or something, then it's going to need to be a lot shorter than that. So, yeah, for me, like, yeah, my 11.5 gun does have a Hux flow, so it can't be removed. I just have no intention of ever doing so. So when you take, like, I built the 12.5 mid dissipator and the 16 rifle dissipator. I used rifle speed gas blocks on both of them. 16 seems like a very cool configuration. 12.5, no point. Why would I take the can off the 12.5? It's a 12.5. Without a can, they're kind of annoying. So just going to leave it on all the time. And then I should probably just go ahead and tune it with a much simpler, cheaper system like the YHM gas block, or get a barrel that only runs suppressed, direct thread it, get a low flow can, run a longer handguard, because now I don't have to worry about trying to clear the rifle speed. So that's why I think the 11.5 dissipator is kind of cool, because you can just throw a can on it forever, tune it once with your chosen method, be it gas port size on the barrel, gas block, gas tube from BRT, whatever. And then you just have one gun that runs well in one configuration with 1-0 with, you know, everything. And that, for a short gun, makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I'm a leave a gun in one configuration type of person. Like, I'm not playing musical chairs with suppressors in terms of like, I'm going to run this gun with or without a suppressor. I mean, if you got one gun and one gun only, then sure. But I think most people have degenerate levels of spending and irresponsibleness and have certain guns. I don't know. I like running a gun in one way, especially since, you know, most cans are not giving you the exact 0 with them off and on.
No, I mean, there's always a point of impact shift, no matter what people say. If you're adding nearly a pound to the end of your gun, it's going to shift in some way.
And it could be, I mean, you could put chemo on there, then it's 2 pounds on the end of your gun, and it's not locking up the same way every time.
Well,
I got a whole fitted weld rant I'm not even going to get into.
No, chemo's your favorite system, isn't it?
No.
Hop needs some chemo.
We actually had a good talk about this on our little live that we did about suppressors, where we're like, I was being excessively cruel to chemo, and Brock was like, well, let's be fair. When chemo came out, it was actually pretty good. It's like, oh yeah, that's a good point. There was a time where
because back then it was like ASR and chemo, and you think chemo is bad. Like, yeah, damn, ASR sucks multiple nuts.
So yeah, no, I can understand. But obviously, like, you buy a Sierra 5 now, the Sierra 5 is hub compatible. You can get it with a chemo adapter or Xeno. So really, it's only older, like almost legacy style cans, like the Sandmans, that are fully welded with a non-replaceable chemo adapter. And YHM already figured that a long time ago. Like, don't have a non-replaceable mount on your suppressor because the mount could wear out, and if not all the components of the mount are replaceable, now you have to send your whole suppressor in for some TLC, possibly involving cutting and welding. So
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, the modern suppressor right now is almost always hub compatible. Now, you guys have been playing around with the Hux, or not the Huxes. No, it is Hux. It used to be OSS. Now it's Hux, right?
Yep.
I always get those two confused. But you guys have been playing around with the flow-throughs, and those are hub compatible, aren't they?
No, the new
they have their
Ventum.
own-
The new Ventum version is hub compatible, and I wonder how much that fucks with them, because one of the things that makes the Hux muzzle devices so much different is that they seem to be an integral part of starting the movement of the gases in a way that can be harnessed by the can. And I think that if you then put a hub adapter on there and stick it on like some Reardon A2 birdcage looking thing, there's just no way the can's going to be able to harvest that energy in the same way. So I suspect the Ventum just will never be able to perform as well as the original Flow. But
Yeah, they literally, the muzzle device literally engages into some of the thing. It's actually really impressive looking.
yeah, there's like little flanges on the inside of the blast chamber, and then the muzzle device like spirals, at least the flash hider version does. So yeah, it's a whole
So it's
system.
designed to
Like,
work
it's really,
together.
yeah, really is designed to work together.
And then it pings a lot.
And unfortunately, the new ones ping like crazy.
With the suppressor off, they're really loud.
With the suppressor on.
Suppressor
only-
pings, we think. And people are like, no, it doesn't. And we're like, can you hear it in the video? You may have certain frequency hearing loss, but in both of our videos of us shooting Huxes, every shot they ring.
And it's only with the suppressor on. It's the.
So the suppressor is the bell.
I want to just weld, tack weld a bead onto it and destroy the harmonics of my can. But
You could do it. No. Well, as long as you don't have the titanium version, I would not recommend doing that.
No, it's
I
the
think
OG
you
556.
Grind the tip off or something. That was a weird hand gesture I shouldn't have made.
We'll see that next time on the next
Yep.
live stream.
Next
right?
intro.
Exactly. Next intro. It's just going to be Hop doing that backwards and forwards.
Just grind the tip off, you guys.
It's
Yeah,
funny.
one
I
thing
watched. Oh, sorry.
Go for it. There
I
you
was
go.
gonna say I watched the. I didn't watch Dune 2 until really recently because I was like, "Fuck it, I'll just pirate it." So I saw your intro well before I saw Dune 2. Then I watched Dune 2 significantly under the influence, and the first half of the movie is a little boring, especially if you don't remember the first movie. And I'm just thinking of Hop and as the different characters.
I have
Lisa,
so
I'll
much
hop.
unused footage of that just floating around, like probably an hour's worth of just random facial expressions and like in 2-second increments, right? Because that's how it's all done. And it's, yeah. But that was a fun project. My controversial take on Dune 2 is that neither of the movies are very good. I actually don't like them all that much.
I still haven't seen them because I keep hearing contradictory things.
They look beautiful. They are probably some of the best looking films. As far as the desert goes, the aesthetic isn't like my favorite, but they make a desert look as good as it can. So
Denis Villeneuve, whatever the fuck his name is pronounced, does make really gorgeous films, and then you rewatch them and you're like, so did anything actually happen in this? And you realize that, nah.
I may have skipped through some parts of the. Once again, I kind of forgot what the first movie was about, and I'd never read the books. But man, watching that movie, I was like, I'll be an upstanding citizen, and then by the end of it, it's like, dude, I'd join whatever ISIS cult this is turning into because my God, does it feel like fuck it, let's go.
I believe
let's go kill some Americans. Yeah,
Man, I wish ISIS was that cool in real life.
yeah, right. I mean, they probably had some of those banger speeches. Yeah.
Yep. Andrew Vachon for $49.99. Thank you very much, sir. Says this is a great birthday present. Well, actually, it's funny. I have his L-can behind me and his ACOG somewhere behind me as well. While I have you, all of you, I'm going to rapid fire some questions. Steiner, T6I, 1 to 6, any good?
Don't know.
No
I
experience.
don't have one.
Just, look through it at SHOT Show, but it's really hard to tell how good an optic is on a showroom floor, where the only thing you can point at that's really far away is the ceiling covered in bright lights. You're like,
So
another
Have
facial
enough
expression.
turrets.
Oh, God, I got to stop doing this. I'm just going to turn my camera off.
Right.
Hit it so you become the purple.
Yeah,
chick.
turn purple.
Purple man. So is that just basically the T4, but with 6x magnification, or did they actually make any new
It's
improvements?
got a really nice reticle design, kind of similar to the PLXC 1:8 first focal planes, where you zoom in through this massive
It's also
crosshairs.
first focal point, so.
Yeah, first focal plane. So you zoom in through this big crosshair, so you have nice aiming lines at any magnification. I don't think it's a super bright Illum type of scope. They've got a really nice like turret setup. Some of the new, I think all of this T6Xs from Steiner have sick turret setups, but
Sick.
yeah.
Did you happen to catch the MSRP on that?
It's pricey.
Yeah,
I was like a Steiner's got to be like
$1,900, maybe not that much.
16, 17. Let me check. I don't think it makes sense with the current market. I mean, it's probably a 19 MSRP. Fucking Christ.
The reticle was developed in conjunction with Kinetic Consulting, so it better be good.
John Mocha Bear from Kinetic Consulting. Amazing. Yeah, no, seems cool. Reminds me of probably a Tango 6 or something to that effect.
It's really hard to go above that, though, when the PLXC does exist and kind of does all the things you want it to do.
Yep.
So, Focus, why'd you put an O sight on my LCAN, referring to the Olight O sight? And
pull up my Instagram.
Yeah,
I also want to know why that happened.
So, where are my other RMR dots? They're somewhere else. All my other RMR compatible dots are somewhere else. And so I had it laying around, and I was like, well, I'm going to put this on an LCAN. And
it works surprisingly well on an LCAN because it's so big.
I actually forgot to. I was going to ask you about this. What do you think about the Olight O sight?
Oh, it's a piece of shit. So the actual emitter housing is made out of plastic. So I got mine dirty.
Okay.
So I rubbed on it, and now it looks like shit.
So yeah, mine has that horrible reflection in the glass. 100%.
Oh, that came before. Oh, I thought I did that. Okay, thank God, that's even better. So
No,
I was
100% of the time it's there.
Oh, so I got it immediately, and I had schmutz from the packaging on the thing. So I rubbed it in the little emitter box that's like kind of sitting there. It's made out of plastic, and I was rubbing it, and I chipped a piece off of it. So I assume that caused the emitter. Wait, I can't get it. It's attached to a gun. So it still works, but the emitter piece is full on plastic and it's exposed from the top. So when you your RMRs get dirty and you send a Q-tip down there, I don't know if it can handle any kind of stuff. But yeah, it's got horrific reflections. I thought I did that, but okay.
Did yours hold 0? Because that's another thing that I've seen a lot of people.
I haven't really used it yet. Okay. I put it on the gun. Like my logic was I was going to put it on a handgun, but then I was like, I don't want to take any of my handguns and put this on it. So I'll just put it on my LCAN where I just use that for passive aiming. So I lined it up with a laser and then haven't really looked at it since.
Does it
Nothing
look okay?
holds 0 on the LCAN because the LCAN doesn't hold 0, and the way it's zeroed requires the body to be moved. So
the amount of memes on me and you as well, it's like, what was it? Bomb-proof optic meets literal bomb. Like who wins? But
actually, I'm gonna go grab that process. I'll be.
Yeah. So I guess we're teachers gone.
So now we can just do whatever we want.
But yeah, I haven't tested under nods because it doesn't get dark until 9:45 every night. So, wow, that's fast.
Ta-da. Look at
The
that.
whole concept doesn't really make sense to me. Like, I think it makes sense from the premise of, it's a really big competition style Halson, whatever, what are they calling it? EPS like competition or whatever.
Oh, the 507 comp or the new Defender XL. I think it looks like a Vectrex console. Look it up, kids.
But the whole charger thing doesn't make sense. I'd almost wish this was USB-C compatible because I'm going to lose the docking port at some point. Like, what am I going to do with it?
Well, then you just throw it away, right?
But then how do you recharge
the anyways? Who cares?
Yeah, but you need the recharger, right? Because the battery's going to last 8 months to a year, right?
It's supposedly 30,000 hours, but
yeah, but the RMR is 50,000 hours, and that only lasts 7 months. So what does that even mean, right? So, or the Halsons, right? All of those say 50,000 hours, and those only last about 6 months with the smaller battery. The 507K only lasts about 2 months or 3 months at 1 or 2 off the top. So yeah, I'm gonna lose that charging port, and then it goes into a trash can. Or we'll try to take 2 contact points because the top is the top of the charging port.
Mhm.
Try to induce a charge.
Put a charge into it.
Or explode myself on the spot and make national news. God, it's so fucking hot in here.
So I don't understand the last part of this. He says, FT, I will buy one of those 11.5 AMUs.
Hit me up.
11.5s, but I don't know what he was referencing with the 11.5.
Probably
The
Night
11.5 MIDI
Crash.
dissipator barrel.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're not buying it from me. They're not mine. I'm just doing the testing for them. And then that's going to be up on CAC's website. So I don't think I'm doing anything with them other than the testing as of right now. The night vision market crashed. Thoughts? That's not something that I'm a expert
market
on. I'm a complete retard into that.
What happened?
I think the community crashed. I think the market's still holding pretty steady. But yeah, it does seem like a lot of the pricing information that we had on night vision for a while doesn't work anymore. So yeah, like for a long time, it was really easy to recommend somebody go buy an Elbit XLS GP tube, and those don't even exist anymore. So
Yeah, they're all gone, right? What
the
happened
market
with
is
that?
different. They just stopped making them because they don't need to. They're making as many white phos tubes as they can make, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. How did it crash? I think what happened to probably a lot of guys who got into it during the big boom period is what happens to guys who try to buy like precision rifles or buy like high magnification optics. They realize really quickly, oh, I have nowhere to use this. Never mind. You know, like I think the category of optic you see unfired more than anything else is high magnification scopes, because people put together a nice build. It's always says mounted, leveled, but never shot, you know, or sighted in, but never shot. So you're like, yeah, people are like, I should get a precision rifle, put it together, take it to their 100-yard range. They're like, cool, it's 0 to 100. Well, do I go back next week and shoot it at 100 again? Forget it. I'm going to sell it all. Night vision's probably pretty similar.
Yeah, it's funny. I think in my friend group as well, the most like brothers and friends and stuff, they buy like some like really nice scope. They'll spend like $1,000 on it or something, mounted up to a rifle in some oddball caliber that they never shoot.
They saw one forum post on it, took a line of Adderall and Bush Light, and fucking sent it.
Goodbye.
That is a potent cocktail.
Brian Isaacs with a member message. Thank you very much, sir. Opinion on SOARs. I believe you mean SOTARs. PSA uppers. Were they cherry picked? I have no idea. Did he do like some sort of autopsy series on their uppers?
They bought like I don't know how many it was. They bought a handful of PSA uppers and went through them to see if they were properly built and did their usual autopsy thing. And I haven't seen the follow-up yet. I don't know if it's up already, but I think they were going to put them all back together after they'd done the autopsy and then test fire them or something like that. So I'm not sure how that came out. I think cherry picking happens way less than you'd think. I mean, given the number of times that I have been working for TFB TV and have been sent a gun like, oh, hey, TFB TV, we want you to shoot this gun, and it has had problems, suggests to me that there's not a lot
they
of
don't
cherry
even
picking
take
going
care
on.
of you either. Like, you'd think you get special treatment, but
Yeah, it's like you'd think like, hey man, you wanted, you know, you got this product that's coming out pretty soon. It'd be nice to get this replaced or repaired before the launch date. Bueller. But yeah, I don't know. It's possible. I just think PSA is way too big to be like monitoring every single order and comparing the names to the known aliases of popular YouTube channels. Like, they didn't probably say like, this is going to the School of the American Rifle FFL. They probably were a little more coy than that. And even so, does the computer pick it up? Does some low-level PSA intern be like, School of the American Rifle, that could be potentially damaging to our brand. I better let someone know right away. I bet it didn't happen.
Laser speed picked up when I did that. I broke the laser speed and used a different email, and they're immediately like, "What's wrong? We've sent you a new model. What happened?" Like, fuck.
That might be my serial number tracking. None of the uppers are going to be serialized, so they're not going to be able to do that kind of stuff, right?
I mean, I think if you're going to do that sort of review stuff, or like the blind buys, I think that's a cool way to do it, to buy like 4 or 5, have them sent to different places, and then go over them that way. If you want to really remove the possibility of somebody cherry picking the upper receivers. But that's the thing. It doesn't matter if they're cherry picked. If the people assembling them were kind of retarded and the people cherry picking them were also kind of retarded, you're probably still going to end up with a bad one in there. So, I mean, how much?
Yeah.
does the
What is
tube-
they test fire it extensively first, or then you would have pretty obvious signs of extensive test firing. Otherwise, it's sort of like, oh, hey man, that's an important one. It's going to SOTAR. Make sure you get a good one. And then it's like, okay, walk over to him like, that one looks good. Let's take that one. It's like, how do you know? You have to do.
You probably just retorque the bolts and then you send it. That's
That
it.
could be it. Yeah, just
You
check for staking.
Yep.
But yeah, like how many rounds do you have to put through an AR before you reveal an assembly problem? It's either 0 or thousands. So
Depending. I actually had a really interesting issue recently. I had a gas tube blow up. It was the first one I've ever seen, and the head where it gets pinned separated from the rest of the tube,
oh,
and so it just blew back into the upper receiver.
That might not even be a QC, something you can pick up in QC.
No,
Like, that sounds like a
I read
materials.
Yeah.
That sounds like a materials like critical crack growth failure or something.
okay,
I mean,
nerd.
and nobody's MPI testing their gas tubes because they're just
Shut the
buying
fuck
them
up.
in the thousands.
Dude, why is it
Julian.
fucking brighter? There's no sun coming through the. Sorry,
You just gotta change the settings.
Just diffuse.
I don't have settings.
Julian says mining resources.mp3. Yeah, I forget what background music this is.
Galaxymap.wav.
It's the galaxy map of.
That's it. Yep.
This is the good. Yeah,
That's
as
the
soon
one.
as you go in. Do.
Just some Space Cowboy says, Brass and Hop, either of you ever use any of Ops/UR Tactical's gear?
Yes, lots. They're a weird company because they seem to have some of their designs look like ripoffs of American designs, but with almost improvements. So there must be somebody pretty smart working for them. And then all of their fabrics are like legit American produced or European produced in the case of their weird like Pencot stuff, I think. So like they use proper materials that they import to China and then produce there and then re-import them. It all ships like direct from Hong Kong or something. I don't remember exactly where. But yeah, something about those designs are better than you'd think for like just Chinese rip-off gear. I don't know if I could ever wear any of their pants. I bet I'm too large. But yeah, they make a ton of pouches. They make a bunch of different like radio pouches. So I've used a lot of their stuff to like build out carriers or chest rigs and stuff in the past, just because it's some like sizes or styles of pouch are kind of hard to find anywhere else. Although more recently I've been using a lot of ATS tactical gear because they also have a ton of like pouch designs, and they're not more expensive, and they're made in the United States. And they're a big time supporter of Jeff Gerwich at Modern Tactical Shooting. So I'm like, I might as well just fucking buy from ATS.
Going back to the battery discussion for just a second, Isaiah Elander says that 30,000 hours is like 2 years. Yeah, but 30,000 hours or whatever number that they quote is usually nonsense because it's like at the lowest possible setting that's quote unquote like daylight bright or something like that. And then your environmentals are going to have a huge impact on that as well. So the rated battery life most of the time is kind of useless.
Yeah,
That's
even
like the,
Paint, which is fairly honest about it, and they say like which setting they're using. Most of the time, it's like a 5 out of 8 or a 5 out of like 10, and that generally is too dim for me personally. Because if I'm gonna like cruiser ready stage, whatever you want to call it, red dot sight, it needs to handle punching through a flashlight in the dark, and that's usually a 2 off the top, sometimes 1 off the top setting if it's a dimmer dot. So.
That's the same thing with the Trigicon MRO, MRO HD, probably the RMR as well. With the MRO, they specifically say setting 4, however many, decent battery life at setting 4. And so you look at the dial and you're like, oh, hell yeah, dude, 4 is pretty damn bright, because 3 is like the minimum daylight or minimum viable daylight brightness. 4 is pretty damn bright. 5 and 6 are like crazy bright. But what they actually mean by 4 is 2, because they're including the night vision settings as the Phantom 1 and 2. And the number 2 setting is unusable indoors in the nighttime. The 1 setting might as well not exist. The night vision settings paradoxically don't get dim enough. That's like the biggest problem with the MRO HD. So whatever the MRO and MRO HD are rated at, cut that in half twice. Like it doesn't fucking do it.
Ultimately, it doesn't matter too much. You just need to be sure you're not falling for the gimmick that it's like my battery is going to last 7.5 years straight. It's just probably not going to happen. So as long as you get that through your head and realize that it's probably only going to last about a year, maybe 2 years if you're micromanaging the bitch, then it doesn't really matter, and all dots kind of converge on the same. And then there's some really horrific dots that last like 4 months or something like that. Some of them are okay. Like I think like a 507K, like a little itty bitty dude. Okay, that's part of the gig of having such a small battery that can be side loaded. But then, Hop reviews a bunch of just bullshit from 10 years ago. Or it's not even, and those things have battery lives. Like some mayflies and have longer battery lives than those.
So what's your standard SOP for swapping out batteries on like a carry piece? Do you do it like every 6 months?
You're going to be a little horrified. I'll just notice it start dimming, and then the gun goes into. I just pick a different carry gun. Like I don't have that many, but I have 2 Glocks, and then a micro, and then a 2011. So I switch guns anyway, just
fair enough. Yeah.
For no reason. So as soon as I see the dot dim, it's like fuck it. All right, you're out of the rotation. Off comes the RMR. Zero it next trip. Do it again. I don't have a proactive thing because the RMRs literally last less than a year if you have them on bright settings, especially if you live in like Arizona, Utah, or something where you need it basically on the full tilt to combat it during the day. So yeah, then I just do that. It's bit me in the ass. I've traveled to Florida to go diving, and I open it out of the airline case, and I'm like going with my carry, and it's like, well, we're fucked, and like the dot's still there. So I'm not going to, swap the battery out in the moment, which you probably could. The zero return isn't horrific on like swapping out an RMR. But yeah, I was going around with Florida with a dot that was on like setting 3 the whole time, the 2.5 weeks I was there.
Yeah, but that's one of the things about those is even if the return is like good enough, it's like taking off like a really nice optic mount or something like that, and it's supposed to return to 0, but it never.
Yeah.
Like,
so I just ran around with that. And I'm like, well, I guess hopefully we'll just be able to box them with the dot.
Yeah, make do. Julian says, I now own 4 waffle toppers.
I think that's probably mine or Hop's fault.
I have never specifically pushed the waffle top as far as I know.
So that was just me then? Or that was mostly
I think,
Brian.
and you're always wearing them, and you are a fashion icon in the industry, so.
Oh, I forgot to put on the bush leg shirt.
I know. Or the banana shirt, at least.
ET Focus, what are your thoughts about putting a Geisley in a BCM Mark II build? Well, the BCM Mark II is a cool upper receiver, has a little bit more rigidity, has a little bit more meat in the areas where it wears down, thermal fit, receiver extension. Geisley is one of my favorite barrels out there, so it is a good combination, and they're not horribly expensive either. The problem is BCM actually selling you a stripped Mark II upper receiver because they don't keep all of their products in stock, and they don't supply their distributors either. And that has bit me several times. Yeah, Magic Barber says memes, but everyone runs their dots way brighter than the advertised level optics companies base their numbers on. Yeah, I'm usually on 8 out of 10 most of the time, depending on where I am and what I'm doing.
I'm pretty obsessed with battery management, so like I will usually, when I case my rifle to take it home from the range, I will turn the dot most of the way down because I end up shooting most of my guns so infrequently that I don't. It'll be a while before I pull it out again, and I'm conscious of that, so I'm just turning the dot off. So I get much longer battery life than I should, given how many red dots I have operating.
Yeah, I'm not that. I'm not proactive about it most of the time. Very rarely have I ever had a dot die on me, but yeah, it's kind of catastrophic if it does at the wrong point.
Also, my carry guns are back to iron sights, so.
Right, are you still only carrying iron sights right now?
Yep.
Staying in the past, man.
I accidentally made that comment on a Ben Steger video, and people were mad at me for sucking, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, it's a carry gun. As long as it works for you, that's the most important part. JDAG for $10. Any thoughts on the Spur RDF magnifier mount for the T2? Mine is in shipping. I'm not even sure what that is, sir.
It's a all-in-one T2 and magnifier mount. Seems like that's the sort of question you should have asked him before you bought one.
Well, most YouTube reviews are confirmation biased. That's it.
or not. Yeah, just make sure that I bought the correct thing. So I'll either yell at you or feel good about my purchase. That looks so weird.
That's kind of horrifying.
Why do I get the impression that that magnifier is going to be too far forward, and the dot's not going to be far forward enough?
Yeah.
I bet it works great on a G3 though.
Can you look at the other pictures? I'm curious what mechanism they use, if they use their other one.
It's like a rolling mechanism. Yeah.
I wonder. That means they probably
that's
they can
how
roll
it
it
is.
all the way out if they want. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Hmm.
Because I have their low mount one, and it can rotate in actually multiple positions, unlike most magnifiers. I'd show it to you, but YouTube sucks. Just constant nuts and dicks down to the shaft.
A much simpler solution is just a longer Picatinny riser, but they're very boring. So I get why people don't. They want something new and hot, and that is kind
There's
of
something to be said of actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that the most magnifiers don't return to zero great when they wobble around over time. So yeah, that's why you use the little spinny boys. So if it's attached to the thing, maybe it's going to keep that dot centered more. If the the ADD really fucks with you. I don't know. It doesn't. I'm trying to think of reasons. It's probably fine. But
I found that the
sure it's
flip
a
to center,
quality mount.
yeah, the
I'm
flipping
not a good
action
fan
seems
of
to return better sometimes than the mounts do.
yeah.
Like on the Unities and the whatever it is, ADM or whatever one that everybody wants to use.
Focus, I might have to send you a couple uppers, BCM and Super Duty. Have you play Swap-a-Doodle? Oh, jeez. And probably have a best of both worlds. Yeah, I hate swapping barrels on BCMs just because of the thermal fit upper receivers. They tend to be a pain.
Also, is the Geisley barrel still considered the best barrel? Because some people say they're amazing, some people say they're not that good, and nobody seems to complain about BCM's BFH barrels.
BCMs tend to be, at least in my experience, a little bit more over-gassed. In terms of accuracy, the Geisleys are some of my favorite for that. Criterion makes a good barrel as well. I'm not a huge fan of their core profile, though I think it's the favorite of the marketplace. I like the hybrid a little bit more, but I mean, they're all good barrels, but I don't think it makes that much of a difference. Slight bit of personal preference. Now, did you guys want to talk about the TGC gun standards at all? Just out of curiosity?
Sure.
Sure.
Let's do it.
You may have to pull those up so people will.
Yeah.
No. I have them. I had them.
I had to Google it, and it took me a very long time to find it because I was on the YouTube page because I'm an upstanding citizen.
Boomer. I found the follow-up video before I found the original post, and I was like, I only vaguely understand what he's talking about. Why are people mad about this? And then I found the original post, and I was like, oh, that's what the controversy was, not the follow-up video.
So my first thoughts when I saw this was I thought this was like one picture of many, because I thought there was going to be a lot of different standards or whatnot, but this is basically it. It's pretty simple, so I'll go ahead and read it out. The Gun Collective standards for 2024. Pistols must work out of the box, no break-in required, must include 3+ mags, and must be accurate at 10+ yards. Rifles must work out of the box, must include 3+ mags, must shoot 1 MOA or better. Over 2K MSRP, must shoot sub MOA. I am tired of underperforming guns.
So, right out of the get-go, just kind of to put that out there, the mag one seems really like I get what he's getting at here, right? But the mag one seems weird, right? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of companies are probably making more on the mags than they are on the gun. Say SIG, charging $60 per mag, right? So if you we can go talk to whoever becomes president and make a law that you have to include 3 mags per gun. But I have a feeling that's just going to make the MSRP go up by exactly 2 mags.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so sure, like I'd love to have 3 mags with my gun, but I don't see that not just being a cost increase of exactly 2 mags or whatever it ends up being over the standard. So yeah, it seems that one seems a bit weird to me. I don't think the world works like that, unfortunately. Guns are sold on pretty tight margins, from what I understand, at least on the the retailer side, right? The margins on handguns are generally pretty piss.
Right.
So
yeah, I'm generally the same mind. If it's a cool gun that I'm planning on using a lot, I'm probably going to end up getting 10 plus magazines anyways. So it's nice to have 3 out of the box so I don't have to go out and buy more immediately. I can at least go play at the range a little bit, but it's not a necessity. I would never buy a gun just because it came with more mags than other. I mean, unless the feature set was like literally identical, but then again, the cost would probably go up by, $60, $120 for those extra magazines. And most guns are coming with 2 right now. And then there's a few out there that are coming with 3, and then a couple that are coming with more, but the ones that come with more are usually like specialty that are very expensive.
Yeah, if you get a gun that's like a compact that comes with a flush mag and an extended mag or something, that kind of makes sense to like, maybe that gives you both experiences, and then you're like, which one of these do I want to buy a bunch more of? It would probably just be more important for the manufacturers to make sure that spare mags are available on the launch of the gun.
That's
The complete opposite of the Bren 10 effect, where dozens, hundreds maybe of Bren 10s left the factory with no mags. So there are less Bren 10 mags than there are Bren 10s in the ecosystem to this day. But yeah, you're buying the gun at the store, you're picking it up at the store anyway. If the magazines are there, then you buy 3 more magazines when you pick up the gun, and you're good to go. That should be fine. Yeah, I mean, value add. Basically, this is just asking manufacturers to kill us less on the price of magazines, and they definitely won't, because it's the Brass Facts always says it's the printer ink of the gun industry.
Well, I think SIG is the best about this, because not only do they charge you so much for the magazines, but then a lot of their new pistol dots that are coming out are only milled for their SIG handguns, right? So they're getting you on the front and the back side in terms of cost.
Hop, do you have a motion for this one? The back and the front? No, you don't.
Not that I could generate off the top of my head.
Okay, we'll double back to that one.
Yeah, you remember when Springfield XDs came with this battle pack bullshit, where it's like they came with a bunch of mags and 2 different holsters.
Yeah, that was my first handgun.
And some boomers or Brass Facts were like, hell yeah, what a value. And then a bunch of other people were like, this is false economy. This is all trash that's going in the garbage. The only thing I'm getting out of this is a spare magazine.
You got a mag carrier that sucked some major donkey dick.
You basically paid $150 for 1 magazine and some plastic bullshit.
Crappy paddle holster. And then
Faux
a pistol,
pistol,
the pistol loader that they include with Glocks, essentially the same thing. And I think that was about. Oh, and of course a lock and instructions on gun safety. Can't forget those. I don't know, the whole magazine thing. Like I would almost say like the inverse. At least from selling guns, my biggest challenge is, back when I worked in a gun store, is trying to get the person trying to get into guns to get the best gun that they can afford, which usually means we're talking between a Sky, a Taurus G2C, or something better, right? And in that scenario, $50 to $100 is a big deal of pricing difference. So adding 3 mags, that's closing in on like $100 for certain handguns, $50 for some others, right? That's going to do more harm than good, in my opinion, in a lot of scenarios of trying to get a good gun in someone's hands. Like once they got the gun, they'll buy the magazines, but fronting a lot of money up front is difficult for a lot of people. Was for me at some point as well. So I don't. That's the one I kind of laser focused on. It just doesn't seem to align with reality.
So a G2C or something like for $200, you're like, oh, that seems like a good deal. But then you see a G2C somewhere else and they're charging $300 for it, and you're like, I'm never buying that. Why would you do that? But it's like, oh, but it comes with 4 magazines. But I don't know if the average G2C buyer, which I've actually bought a G2C, is looking for extra magazines.
Not bad. Yeah, they're actually really decent starter handguns in that price range. Like you are dumpstering the competition, like because that's actually a fully fledged handgun. Everything else in that price bracket is a
what is it? Sky, which I've also owned a Sky, the CPX2, horrible. And that was a gun I shot like twice back when I knew nothing about guns, and then I was like, this is
developed crippling arthritis.
No. I got rid of it. I got rid of it very quickly. Back when
you shot 2 rounds, so that's actually enough to develop.
Yeah, no, that was an awful handgun. And then what else do you have in that? Like the High Point, but that's kind of a meme.
I think even like noobs understand that the high point is a meme. You don't need to know the memes to understand the high point is a meme as soon as you pick it up compared to everything else.
Yeah. I mean, even just the look, you can tell there's something wrong with it.
I also had a question here that kind of, what does must be accurate at 10 plus yards mean? Because like accuracy is range, like intrinsic, or right? Like a handgun at 7 yards that is accurate at 7 yards isn't suddenly going to become inaccurate at 15 yards.
Yeah.
So
Sure,
I don't actually understand what that
comparatively
means. Yeah,
so actually, it's funny. Luke actually did a video with TFB TV Showtime with John that I watched yesterday or the day before yesterday. And John's description of this was basically he's looking for a fist-sized group at 10 yards, which it mechanically should be achievable by every handgun out there.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not every shooter can achieve a fist-sized group at 10 yards, you should be able to, of course. But that might not be physically achievable for some people.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's a single handgun that can't do a fist-sized group at 10. Like, because what like mechanically the Gen 5 Glocks are grouping like this big at 25 yards.
It's
like,
the S33 Thunderstruck that shoots 2 Win Mag or 222 WMRs at the same time, and one of them is always tumbling. That probably can't do it.
That's the only gun that gets knocked off this list. Actually, funny enough, I do have a ported Glock 17 ported barrel that is not accurate like this. It might be able to hold a fist-sized group at 10 yards, depending on the ammo selection, but sometimes it'll shoot like 6 inches at 10 yards.
Time to tumble at 10 yards.
Yeah.
Well,
I just I swapped it out with an identical barrel, same manufacturer and everything, and that one there works better. So just a bad.
This kind of turns into the issue that like SIG has with the 320, that they advertise it as being the most accurate like service handgun ever, and I think almost all that comes down to their much more precise way of shooting test groups at the factory using very complicated high-tech machines, as opposed to like, I think we talked about this not too long ago, probably on primary and secondary, but like you buy a Walther and it comes with a test target that was shot by an old guy who works there, and he signs his name and he's like, Joe at Walther shot this group on this date. And you're like, that's kind of cool. And he's a good shooter, Walther, or Joe with Walther. He's been there for a long time, but he's not going to be as good as a high-tech fixture that aligns the sights with lasers. And, you know, that thing's going to produce better groups. And it doesn't matter a tiny bit to the end user of the gun, because you're not shooting the gun like that ever. So, yeah, measuring mechanical accuracy. I mean, does this mean that manufacturers are now all going to have to build these fixtures like SIG has and then include a test shot group? Because then you're going to have to prove it. You're going to be guaranteeing these accuracy standards. A bunch of people are going to be unable to meet them and then complaining. So you have to include a target in the box saying, look, we know this gun shoots like this. Don't try to return it. Don't call us up about it. You just suck. The gun is fine. Much easier just to not have an unachievable accuracy standard. Same thing with like ballistic advantage sub MOA guarantee is 3 shots match ammunition, good shooter, etc. It's like, yeah, almost anything will do that. A accuracy guarantee that's better than that would require many rounds fired. You'd have to do several groups, because a lot of people will shoot like 10 groups in a row. They get 1 sub-minute and they're like, look, my gun is sub-minute capable.
Hey,
seems difficult.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the difference between 5-shot groups and 3-shot groups, like if I shoot 6 back-to-back 5-shot groups, if I take the best 3 out of those groups, like probably half of them are going to be MOA or better.
And then, the last one, I guess, the must work out of the box, no break-in required. I feel like everybody already wants that, because you hear complaints about any gun that does require break-in. Like Shadow Systems, they have a disclaimer in the manual that says 200 round break-in time. And even though most of them don't require it, it still bothers people. They're like, that's bullshit. It shouldn't take 200 rounds to break in. Some of them I'm sure do, but I think people already don't like that.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I don't shoot any what people would consider to be high-end handguns. So I was actually going to ask Brass, because you're more into like 2011 style guns. What do you think about no break-in required?
I have one.
Well, that's more than me.
Yeah,
It's a billion% more.
It depends. So this is a little unfair, I think. To what's his name again, John? There's only so much information, and like, what did I actually mean by this that you can fit in this little box thing? And like, he already elaborated on what they were saying, the fist size group, which is fair, right? Like, if a handgun's not doing a fist size group, yeah, fuck yeah, get that out of my face. But break-in is like a really weird thing, like what you mean by it, because there's break-in required in the sense that the gun is less reliable than you would expect, right? And that applies to a lot of handguns, right? Like, if you buy a gun out of a box and fill it full of dirt, it might be over the threshold where the gun doesn't work, where it otherwise might work. There's also like really short break-in periods of like 10 to 15 rounds, right? Some guns are just covered in factory goop and need to work through that shit, or machining, extras or whatever. Do you mean that break-in period? I'm assuming he means like what most people imagine is going on with 2011s, where they're kind of just a bitch for the first like 200 to 300 rounds on the cheaper end of things, which, yeah, fair enough, I guess.
Yeah, I think he does specifically mention guns that are too tight being like the high-end style of guns, 2011s, 1911s, that sort of thing. But yeah, the general idea is just that they work out of the box with no finagling required.
Yeah, I think that's entirely fair. I think break-in has probably been misattributed in the industry in terms of what it actually means. I think a lot of people, I mean, that's a whole can of words, but like, a lot of people are just be like, oh, well, I finally beat this recoil spring into submission, after 40,000 malfunctions. Now the gun is broken in. It's like, no, you've just reduced the recoil spring by 1 to 2 pounds or something like that, and now it's slightly more reliable. That's not break-in, right? So yeah, no, I mean, I would agree, right? If a gun truly requires like legitimate break-in, that's pretty nuts on a defensive gun.
Yeah, especially for like a serious application gun. I think for maybe some weird sporting guns, it's maybe not that big of a deal.
Well, like accuracy-oriented guns don't necessarily need a break-in, but they need a wear-in period for the barrels, for example, for the lands and grooves to kind of. But that's different. I assume that's not what he means.
Yeah, that's a super. I don't think these are just like general standards, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Now, for the last thing really to talk about is just what we already covered about the accuracy. 1 MOA groups are, with any sort of semi-automatic rifle, incredibly difficult to get, especially if we're taking like real group sizes, like 90% out of 10-shot groups, and we're not necessarily cherry picking. To get true 1 MOA consistent accuracy is very, very difficult, and especially for like some $600 like PSA special or something like that.
Yeah, this will obviously, I think, requires defining as well. Like, to me, and it sounds like to you, being a 1 MOA gun means the gun is always 1 MOA, and it doesn't matter if you reset groups. If you superimpose another group over it, you can essentially get a 50-shot 1 MOA group. Essentially, is what we're saying, right? You do 5 back-to-back 10-shot groups, and all of them are 1 MOA, right? That's a 50-shot group, basically. So, yeah, if you define it like that, there's almost no guns that can do something like that unless you get really high end. So I don't agree in that sentiment at all. And also, this is like hyper ammo dependent, right? So.
Oh yeah, it has to be. I mean, your individual barrel and ammo choice, even different batches, batch to batch consistency could be an issue if you're trying to get like a true like 1 MOA shooter. Basically, I mean, most like bench guns and stuff like that are designed can really achieve that level of accuracy, but we're talking about, again, this is like any rifle. So outside of like a 3 MOA or a 3-shot group, probably
it's
not.
Also a weird standard, right? Like, do I care for that as a feature set, especially in a cheaper gun? Or even in like mid-tier like AR-15s, for example, right, which are fairly accurate, is that something I necessarily care all that much about? Which, once again, I think this is a defining terms kind of issue. What exactly does he mean by 1 MOA? Not sure. Right? I think the charitable interpretation would be like, can it whip out a 5-shot, 1 MOA group with match ammo? Yeah, okay, maybe. Fair enough.
Yeah, even that's a maybe with some semi-autos, though. Yeah. I mean, again, if you shoot enough groups, you can eventually get one.
Yeah, but that's being disingenuous for sure. So yeah, it really depends what he means by that.
Usually what I'm looking for when it comes to a rifle, if it's shooting, let's say 2 MOA-ish with ball and then can get closer to 1.5 or under with match is kind of what I'm looking for, because I usually try and test like 4 to 6 different loads through a gun, a couple training loads, and then like 4 or 5 match loads. And so, but even I'm not looking for like MOA or sub MOA.
That would be unheard of, I feel like, as we defined, right? Or not even as we defined, like a much generous version would just be, can that thing do a 10 round at 1 MOA group?
Yeah, most guns can't. Most guns can't. 1 inch at 1 yard, correct.
I don't
You can pull
think
that
I
off.
actually own a 1 MOA AR-15. I got Geisley's and stuff like they're all like straddling the 1 MOA line, but like consistently doing it.
Right. Yeah. Because of course, I shoot 1 MOA groups with Geisley's, but not every single group that I shoot is going to.
Every once in a while, you get like a 4 round like turbo rounds touching, and you're like, God damn, I'm Chris Kyle, and then one of the rounds goes off, and you're like, fuck you, that was a flyer, bitch, and you strike it out.
Well, if you get lucky 3 times in a row, you can probably get lucky 5 times in a row as well.
Not me. I'm the worst group shooter known to mankind. I just get impatient. I'm like, all right, fuck it. In the last 2 rounds, I'm like, let's do it.
Well, I think some people too, like when I'm reviewing something, people will comment, oh, this didn't shoot the way that I wanted it to because I was looking for sub MOA accuracy. And it's just happened to be that I didn't get the groups on that day, And so people will look at that and be like, oh, this thing is garbage because it didn't shoot, like this other gun that supposedly shoots that good.
Yep. I'm just not a good enough shooter to get the same results out of myself every time I go to the range. So also I'll have some days where I'm just on it and some days where I'm not, varying levels of caffeine intake and hangover. Just like I try to include that if I don't usually try to talk about groups that much, but yeah, it's like, I feel like I could have done better, or no, I feel like I did as well as I could on this one. So
that's one of my favorite quotes from one of your videos where was it the C note or something like that? Like we're shooting a lot of lower left edge of plate, but sometimes you just have a lower left edge of plate day, right? Where the handgun is just yonking down the whole fucking day.
I don't remember what that was from.
That's an oldie, probably.
Man, what was that? I feel like that might have been Operation Mudslide. I can't remember though.
Could be. Yeah. I don't know. That is something from the perspective of a reviewer in reverse that I'm kind of frustrated about, where people have unrealistic accuracy standards and they're like, why didn't you dog on this gun for, it's a $2,000 gun, $1,500 gun, why didn't you dog on it? And I'm like, it's an X barrel. Like this is a general purpose barrel. You're not going to get that kind of performance out of it, nor do I want this gun to achieve that level of accuracy by putting in a turbo expensive match stainless steel barrel, right? Like I don't want a stainless steel barrel on this gun, for example, right? So I think this is just a defining terms issue, right? Like, in fairness, I probably should have read up what he meant by all of these things.
Well, I just wanted to go over kind of like what we thought was reasonable as well. We don't need to like dog on the guy because these are just his standards, right?
Yeah. I think it is a little weird that like he's a gun reviewer. Like, isn't his job our job to figure these things out? So demanding, like, if every gun that comes to your door has all of these features, especially if it's an AR-15, like your job starts to matter a lot less, right?
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to get to the point where every product on the market is so good that nothing has to be reviewed anymore. That seems like unrealistic.
But these are some pretty damn hardcore standards.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I think what he's doing is laying out his standards. And so when he reviews a gun from now on, he's going to be like, I didn't think this was accurate enough because I want a gun to do this. And this one did not. Yeah. I didn't think the gun is reliable enough because it had a 200 round break-in period and it gave me all these jams. I don't think that's acceptable. So I think he's just sort of setting up his year of business that he's going to be doing going forward. And
I guess how he worded it was a little bit weird, though. It's like, I'm tired of subpar guns. Like, to review it, I need these standards. I don't think
he's like, declaring a holy war or anything. I think he's basically just saying like, yeah, if your gun can't do this stuff, I'm probably not giving it a thoroughly positive review.
That's except for the magazines. I think that's pretty fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that also is going to depend on the money. Because, some of the Tauruses do include more magazines, but their magazines are cheaper anyway, so...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna be pissed if my, insert Stenag pattern magazine comes with a bunch of hex mags that hit that standard.
Oh, damn. MN2s or fucking UTG mags.
Paramags.
20-inch barrel fetishism does not pass the ballistics by the inch test, man. You got to stop doing that.
He was talking to me about that a little bit. Apparently, you were saying something about the civilian auto rifle stuff or something. I didn't look into it at all.
Yeah, it's one of the, like the gun community, the really hardcore gun community will go through moods. And the one a lot of people are on right now is auto rifles. Remember, for a while, people were complaining about chest rigs of different types and then belt kits or whatever. So we've gone through all these little things where people get briefly obsessed with an idea and then overdo it, and then people get sick of it and go away. And yeah, the auto rifle is interesting because a lot of people are talking about it, and it's getting a lot of interest from people who, if you were to interrogate them about their ammunition stockpile, probably would be insufficient. And people who don't have a way to actually take advantage of a platform like that, like all the stuff that Red Right Hand puts into their uppers is designed to sustain a really long, like high rate of firing schedule, which without a full auto trigger pack and a lot of extra ammunition on yourself and your buddies, you're not going to hit the limits of your normal AR to begin with. So there are some people who are definitely well prepared enough to make use of something like that. But 100% of the people in the comments of those videos are not. Those people are just enamored with the idea right this second. So,
yeah, no, I think that's fairly accurate. I like the concept, and it's something that I actually have one of his 20-inch ARs sitting over there, actually, that I need to do some more playing around with. But yeah, no, the gun industry definitely hyperfixates on certain aspects of things, and there are new hot trends that come in, like the IAR. But I think that for some people, it is always going to be a very niche thing. And so I'm glad to see it get more traction right now. But yeah, most people are not actually prepared to carry the ammo, have the ammo, or need a system like that right at this point in time.
Or have the team SOP. Like, do you have 5 other dudes that you've practiced, react to contact? You have ammo burn rates internalized. I can guarantee, like Hop said, I can guarantee you most people in those comments don't really understand how much ammo a Civ IAR with a whatever the fuck trigger is burning through. Like, you're going to be like, we've been doing a lot of testing recently on this subject with just regular carbines, and the burn rate of ammo is ridiculous if you're doing that kind of react to contact. Now, how necessary is that react to contact? I don't know. That's why we do it sometimes. I don't think is as relevant as most people make it out to be. It's a good tool in the toolkit, but you throw in an IAR on top of that, and that ammo burn rate skyrockets to the point where I would argue, forget micro rigs, right? You're not even going to make do with a 6-round on chest ammo in the bag kind of scenario. You need a full jungle rig to sustain a weapon like that properly, unless your logic was, I'm going to burn 2 mags hard and then switch to semi-auto, maybe, right? But it's a lot of testing and training and working with a team to develop SOPs that 95, close to 99% of the community has not hit that threshold yet. I'm still working on that threshold. I don't have an IAR because I don't think we have the SOPs and training and stuff like that to even just make regular carbines work in that, because it's just a much higher thing. It's something I want to interrogate at some point with like a jungle rig and all that stuff. Assuming none of these triggers remain legal, and I could do so on TV, quote unquote.
Right. Yeah. Not get in trouble for doing stuff like that. No, but a lot of the times,
all those like rate increasing systems also have a lot of issues. Like, binary triggers are worse than not binary triggers, just full stop. They're fucking god awful. FRTs and watts and stuff require an enormous amount of tuning to get working properly, and then they're also subject to all sorts of operator induced malfunctions, like, whoops, I squeezed the trigger too hard. I bet that'll never happen in combat. Like, those don't seem like a great idea. So if you take away the rate of fire, then the beefed up components no longer seem as strictly necessary, And if you are going to fantasize your way into an alternative increased rate of fire, you may as well fantasize your way into a different weapon system altogether. And if you're expecting some angel investor, local military unit to adopt your ragtag band of Wolverines and supply you with ammunition, but also say, hey, you guys are going to have to use that little kit build Civi IIR that you put together because we don't have any guns for you, but we do have unlimited ammunition, so here you go. Go take out the Russians or something. It just seems like a staggeringly implausible series of unfortunate events that would befall you.
Yeah,
It's a cool idea, though. It's a cool idea. We talked about this for the first time with Delta 34 like a year and a half, 2 years ago, and ran through like all these different, ways to do it in a more expedient way. Nothing I think that we had proposed was like nearly as high level as the red right hand stuff. Like that is, actually using like custom components and like smarter parts choices and like, let's actually build a different kind of gun entirely. So I think it's a pretty sick build.
So you can do a lot with the AR-15 platform. So there's lots of little stopgaps you can make. There's like your general purpose, like let's just say government profile barrel, and then you can make just a little bit better system that can take a little bit more heat, and then you can max out the AR-15, which is like kind of what the red right hand system does with like actual cooling components, actual, different stuff that actually makes it have a higher heat capacity, let's say, which means ammo capacity as well. And then once we move away from the AR-15 to other systems entirely, the cost goes up like 10 to 20 times as much, depending on what system you're going to. But that's those custom rifles as well, not just AR-15s that have been modified to the nth degree, but like true custom AR or custom rifles or whatever they may be that are better at that. Those are insanely cost prohibitive. So like an IAR, let's say, built out of an AR-15 is still attainable for most people, even if the ammunition and the circumstances in which you would need that are not necessarily likely.
There's something to be said about putting a SOCOM barrel in a run-of-the-mill general purpose-esque inspired rifle and then putting a thing in it and just calling it a day right there. Right, that's most of the way there. So that could be.
You just take the guy in the team that has a 14.5 Cold Ember Forged Chrome Line barrel and an ACOG, and you hand him a Magpul D60, and you say, hey, if shit pops off, you're the base of fire while the rest of us run away. And you've basically done it.
And he's also like, wait, don't you guys kind of not like me that much? Oh, that's unrelated. Yeah, we're totally going to give you that covering fire so you can make it back to us after.
we feel pretty indifferent about you, but we do like the look of that barrel you got in that AR. It looks pretty beefy. So
talking about binary triggers, the one that I have has been nothing but issues. You can make it look good on Instagram or in videos, but then you're cutting out like malfunction reels basically at that point.
And when you consider the scenario where this is at its zenith in terms of a concept is ambush/react to contact, where it's incredibly stressful, right? It's the most stressful part of the fight, and you're gonna have, I hate to use the word because we finally got it out of the lexicon, but gross motor skill, reduction. Like we finally got rid of that, but there is something to be said about that because these are kind of finicky triggers, right? These aren't real full auto, obviously.
Yep. No, they can increase your rate of fire if you do everything perfectly.
They can also decrease your rate of fire.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Jesus, how is it still 80 in here?
I'm sorry, man. Well, it's only 9:30 there? 8:30?
Yeah,
Mountain time?
9:30. Yeah.
Yeah.
the temperature finally
Sun's
broke.
just
I'm not talking about the time. I'm talking about the temperature.
No. I know that, but the sun's just about to set there, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can. Well, actually, it still
Jesus
looks like
has left the building, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
You still look bright.
that's mostly just the light right above my.
Man, we got to get ourselves an influencer podcast studio in Dallas, Texas, or Austin, or whatever all the podcast nerds are these days.
Oh,
Texas is popping. I think I did miss the super chat going back real fast. Andrew Vachon for $4.99. Thank you very much, sir. The rifle standards are smoking crack, and most handguns, I would say, are accurate past 10 yards. Unfortunately, most shooters aren't. I feel like that's a shot at me. I hate shooting handguns.
Focustripp sucks, man.
I
He's
don't
never
think
going to be a no gun will ever be good for him ever again because he can't make the standards.
It's true. All right, well, that's about all that I had for tonight, gentlemen. We're at an hour and a half. So do you guys have anything else you want to chat about before we turn this guy off?
I want some more hop hand motions to kind of tide us over.
Well, I already have them. I already have them marked, so I'll cut them out in just a minute. Don't worry.
It's already
I like to imagine you have a physical
incriminating
notepad on your desk where like 1234 hop makes.
You know what's funny is I actually do have a notepad open right there. That is sitting right there.
Well,
So what do you guys got coming up? What
nothing
projects?
good.
We had stuff coming up, and now we have nothing coming up.
Nothing at all.
Yeah, our AK project was not a success.
Well, you mean like video-wise, or do you mean like?
Yeah,
like
but project-wise, video-wise, whatever. Because I was actually looking forward to that AK stuff, but.
Oh yeah, we're working on AK stuff. Hobbs AK just refuses to work, so that really put a pin in his thing. He's really excited about my EMP video that I'm coming out with. That's coming up.
I've been telling Brassfax he needs to make a video about the realities of EMP for like 2 years, and he's like, nah. And I'm like, but it's, first of all, nobody who's ever understands EMP has ever talked about it in like the prepping community. And second of all, it's the perfect Brassfax video because you're a nerd and a prepper. This is the kind of stuff you should be doing.
So what's the 30-second intro to that? What happens when an EMP goes off? Because I know absolutely nothing about that.
The premise of the video, and backed up by a lot of articles, the Congressional Report, whatever, EMPs as depicted in social media, and more importantly, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, where it wipes up your EOTech and also your ACOG etching for some reason, that's mostly fiction, right? That EMPs are not that effective at all, right? They will take out, they will temporarily disable certain things, but in general, that is not really what's going to happen unless there's some quantum leap forward in EMP technology. But yeah.
So basically, don't worry about it.
I would not say don't worry about it, because a lot of bad stuff can still absolutely happen based off of an EMP, right? Transformers can be destroyed, controllers can like be desynced. There's a ton of stuff that can happen that can still absolutely wreck modern society. But this is more for the, the part of the community. It's like, don't buy an encrypted radio because, you won't have a radio when the EMP hits. Don't buy a red dot because the red dot's going to be gone. Don't buy, don't rely on technology because.
TLDR, the aim point on your gun is the least of your concerns.
Yeah. So, that didn't even make sense to begin with. Like, even if EMPs were a thing as depicted in social media, it doesn't mean you should forsake technology, right? Because EMP is probably not going to happen. But yeah, in general, it's a scientific discussion on how EMPs do not behave as, for some, the prepper and what was it called? Media depicts them as. Which is the Call of Duty way, right? Where it's like, and then helicopters.
Yeah, exactly.
Sarge, helicopters are falling out of the sky, man.
The
Yo, Ranger, pull yourself together.
The
We
guys
were trying to figure out the over-under on how many of those helicopter
in
pilots
space.
would successfully auto-rotate on the way down.
Yeah, we were.
Because we know it'd be probably a good number of them, because that's one of the main skills to have as a helicopter pilot.
to not die in a stall.
Yeah.
So what happened to the AK?
You see some comments right here. They're like, EMPs will cause unshielded nuclear power plants to melt down. No, they will not. For starters, those plants are using pretty high-end computer components that are already incredibly resilient to EMPs, and they're probably shielded already on top of that.
It'll turn us into the United Kingdom when it kills our air conditioning. Oh, that'd be awful.
See, that's the thing. I don't want to survive the EMP. I want them to hit me with a direct nuke, but
yeah,
are thinking of
peg me with the nuke. One of the MIRVs comes straight through your window and takes you out with blunt force impact.
If it's going to be that bad, it might as well happen quickly.
That would be quickly.
So what happened to the AK? Was that the PSA AK that went 1,000 rounds? Because I know you were talking about that at one point.
We call them PSACs now.
Yeah,
PSACs.
PSACs. That's the new name for them. So we went on a trip with 3 PSA AK 104 builds and had issues with all of them, mostly related to optics stuff. But mine, the trigger does not reset properly. I've replaced the entire fire control group. I've done a lot of polishing and work on the original fire control group. And I'm at this point beginning to suspect that like the trigger and hammer pin holes in the lower receiver are not in the right place or something, because nothing I can do allows this trigger to reset properly. There's just too much binding in the system. So either I keep taking material off the disconnector and hammer surfaces until it starts working, and I guess that's an option, or I might have to send the gun in and see if there is a dimensional problem.
That's actually a hand-fitted AK, which is very expensive. So you're learning how to work.
That's why they cost so much, because of all the man hours that go into polishing the disconnector surface until it finally starts working.
Yeah, figuring out how to make a trigger work for $3,000.
But it's too bad, because I actually really enjoyed that AK setup that I put together. It was actually really nice. Mine was the best one. It didn't work. Brock's had a terrible optic on it, but it worked. And then the guy who was with us had a dogleg AK rail that came loose and lost a critical component. So
the helicoil came out.
So are you guys going to be retrying that concept, or just kind of shelving it for now?
I'm still doing it, assuming I didn't break my AK by mistake. So I'm still rolling. The other guy sold all of his AK and 7,000 rounds of 7.62x3.9. He was so disillusioned by AKs after that trip.
Jeez.
He's the only one of us that actually took the right lesson away from that trip.
Yeah, just go back to the AR-15.
So I think a lot of people are wondering, like, why are we doing PSA AKs? And the logic is, like, it's the only real American-produced AK that has any hope of succeeding. And at some point, PSA surely is going to figure it out. Surely. So it's our jobs as reviewer to find when that point is, or more importantly, when that point still isn't. And that's why we're doing PSA AKs. Everyone knows that you can buy a Wasser, it's going to come with non-concentric threads. The sight base is going to be crooked, but in general, it's going to work. That is not useful added information. I own those types of guns. So from the perspective of value added to the community, if we're going to do AK content, we might as well do it in a fashion that adds data to the pool, and disproves the people that are like, PSA AKs are complete trash, and we're like, hey, here's a data point of 3 AKs where they succeeded for X amount. Or, yeah, bros, sorry, still buy that Wasser, or maybe just don't buy an AK at all.
Yeah, I wonder what the numbers are on that, because I'm pretty sure PSA would blow just about everybody else out of the water in terms of volume sold for AKs.
Yeah,
gotta be. They've probably
if they can pull it off,
right,
that would actually save AKs in a lot of ways, because the AK market is kind of in a sorry state right now.
Yeah, for the AK to remain viable like it was 20 years ago, they have to be cheap, and Wassers aren't even cheap anymore. So like they're not cheap, and they're just as bad as they were when they were cheap. So it's like,
right, you're paying like the same thing.
Yeah,
when they were $300, that's a good deal. All right, gentlemen, but thank you very much for your time. And thank you for everyone who was watching the stream and who's going to watch this later. I appreciate you guys. But with all that out of the way, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Peace off.